Hi, I'm Guy Powell, and welcome to the next episode of the Backstory on Marketing. If you haven't already done so, please visit prorelevant.com and sign up for all of these episodes and podcasts. I am the author of the newly released book, The Post-COVID Marketing Machine: Prepare Your Team to Win. And you can find more information on this at marketingmachine.prorelevant.com. So marketing has changed so much over the last 12 months, even if not changing every day. COVID is over and AI has absolutely infiltrated our marketing actions, and analytics is the new currency. So yikes, one of my favorite words. And it's really, the question is, are your marketing and sales teams ready for AI? With that, today I'll be interviewing Will Riley. Will is the Revenue Operations Director at FitzMartin, Inc. So let me tell you a little bit about Will. So Will is, as I mentioned, the Revenue Operations Director at FitzMartin. Over his exceptional career, Will Riley has been a trusted advisor for Fortune 500 executives in the B2B, fintech, and manufacturing industries. His unique approach to aligning sales and marketing operations drives revenue growth and maximizes customer lifetime values. Will is keen to spot optimization opportunities within the complex buyer journey and has the expertise to execute the strategies to deliver high-quality lead generation, validated engagement, and operational savings for middle market B2B companies. Welcome, Will.
God, thank you so much for having me on the podcast today. It's a pleasure.
Yeah, absolutely. Looking forward to hearing all about each and every one of these things. B2B marketing, to me, is one of the most difficult marketing challenges there are. I think consumer is significantly easier than B2B. So let's get started. So how did you get into marketing? What is your backstory on marketing?
Yeah, absolutely. Been in marketing, my entire career. I started out in the financial industry, so I worked for a credit union for a couple of years. Was in the marketing team, and it was really different from people in my generation. Got to actually use my degree and apply that to my first job. So really, from classroom to to my first desk job, was I got to apply some of that theory and take that right to application. So was there, love my team there. We were an award winning. The credit union world, we won a lot of diamond awards, and we've always worked with an agency. So when I was there, we had two different agencies, from a branding and obviously from a more technical perspective. And then as I was looking to just diversify and get into some different industries, going agency side is what a lot of people in our industry experience. That, hey, do I want to go client side or agency side? So was client side, for a couple of years. In between, eventually coming to the agency side, actually was part of two startup companies. So we created a software platform to deliver leader development for companies that wanted to invest in their people. Then also a recruiting business. So did that for about 5 years. And then FitzMartin was a client, funny enough. So we actually did some recruiting and some consulting with FitzMartin. Sean, our founder, owned the company for over 30 years and was looking to really diversify outside of industry, but more into the type of marketing. So I did a lot of performance marketing in my past, a lot of grassroots, and definitely wanted to grow more in RevOps strategy and on the tech side. So the last 7 years, I've been really building out the revenue operations division of FitzMartin over the last several years.
Yeah, fantastic. And so, well, tell us a little bit more about FitzMartin. Who do you guys focus in on, and what do you see as as some of the great things that you're doing?
Yeah, absolutely. So we're, like I said, we've been around for over 30 years. So we've been through the ringer of all the different waves of changes in marketing. So from there's people that still call us FitzMartin Design, FMD, still the passwords. We pay homage to the old name. That people still view us as that high-end design high impact mailer type companies. And 30 years ago, I mean, if you were an agency, you created a lot of direct mail, a lot of beautiful pieces that were, and think like not just a postcard, but really investing in the creative quality and things like that. So we started out in design and then obviously grew into more web and have digitized. And I'd say if you look at a timeline of FitzMartin, the design wave was huge. I'd say the inbound methodology was huge when HubSpot rolled that out of, hey, you got to have not just a beautiful website, but a website that converts leads and is not just getting traffic, but is actually providing value to your sales force. So we were part of that wave. And I think we're now seeing a more tech-driven wave. And in the last 12 months, to your point, Guy is definitely more on AI. I mean, 3 years ago, I would have told you, dynamic CRM content was the hot thing in tech. And now the hot thing is getting tech to do some of that more mundane or potentially scalable work. So we've been around a while. We've seen a lot of changes. We'd say we're doing the work that we love to do right now, and we do that in a variety of ways. For as you mentioned in my intro, we focus a lot in manufacturing, industrial manufacturing, and also the fintech, FinServe, banks, credit unions. There's a lot of ancillary industries and financial, but yeah, we've just got a vast expertise in both of those verticals. They couldn't be further apart, but we're very, very well positioned in equipping our clients, buyers, to have a accelerated sales journey, whether you're trying to get a credit card application or selling a warranty for a product install, whatever yep. We're trying to do. And to your earlier question, one of the advantages that I think we have over other agencies, for people that are watching the video, we'll see a guy referred to it as a subway behind me, but it's really our framework. Our methodology is our major differentiator. And it's essentially, we call it centricity. And it's essentially a framework that not only identifies the buyer's needs, but it's providing what the buyer needs at the right time. So when you talk about avoiding the stickiness, what we see a lot is that technology can be your best friend in helping to expedite a sales journey, whether it's in the ad tech, martech, sales tech category. We just see a lot of agencies tend to not necessarily focus on the technology part of the buyer's journey, but we've realized that it's got to be essential. So the subway is the tech. So the major categories, we'd say there's 6 stages of a buyer's journey, no matter what you're buying or selling. If it's a pair of glasses, a new t-shirt, the latest Instagram ad, or a variable frequency drive, whatever you're buying or selling, you go through the same stages of change. But an accelerator that marketers, I think, cannot ignore is technology. So, and that's why, from our perspective, and why my team leads that, is that there's really 3 main categories of tech, and that's that ad tech, martech, and sales tech. So we've prided ourselves in really having the access to the best technology, but we also use it to amplify the pipeline or accelerate the pipeline and get higher quality leads. So they're not mutually disconnected. They are or exclusive. They are actually one and the same.
Yeah, absolutely. And I hate to say it, I think going back maybe the earlier stages in FitzMartin, I'm pretty sure you were our agency back then. So
are you serious?
I think so. Yeah, I think so. I could be wrong.
Yeah. I'll check on the server. Yeah. Do you remember your job code? If you remember your job code, we have
right. Well, I was not on the creative side in the company. I was a product manager. And so then our creative team, I don't know. I kind of remember the name. So it may be, it may not be. We'll have to see.
Oh, that's
so yeah, I definitely agree. I mean, technology, and I like the way you put it in terms of ad tech, martech, and then sales tech. And certainly that's a big driver of growth. So tell us how that all kind of comes together for you then.
Yeah, so we look at, yes, obviously the buyer's journey's got 6 stages, but when we really look at the funnel, if we're using the F word, early stage, in any buyer's journey, marketing has a lot more influence than sales. So when you look at what can we provide the buyer, what does the buyer need, typically gets answered through marketing tactics, through the website, through email, through an ad. But that messaging at scale, so hey, we want to reach a lot of people, and we want to then qualify them to see if they have legitimate interest in what we're offering. So really, MarTech sits at the front. We also think it sits at the bottom, because MarTech can be the foundation to alarm the sales team when someone's ready for a phone call, when someone's ready for a demo. But we really leverage MarTech, I'd say, at the really the foundation, but then also early stage. Ad tech, we see at every stage of the journey. So when you get into media tactics, whether it's digital out of home, which is a very new advertising strategy, to CTV on the programmatic side, to just basic retargeting ads. It just all matters and is connected to buyer intent. So you have a lower intent versus a higher intent, depending on if you're ready for action. So yeah, we would say that ad tech is really omnipresent, if you will. But the type of media that you're running and the technology in which you're placing that media or that ad, it varies at stages, right? I mean, we're not going to run a certain type ad on the front end versus if we were on the back end. And on the sales tech side, yeah, I mean, it's basically anything that the sales team needs to do their job. So we've seen that some of the same tech that MarTech uses, the sales team also inherit. So if you're using Salesforce or Dynamics or HubSpot, some of the top, Marketo, even on the MAT side, some of the bigger CRM and MAT offerings out there, there's a lot of things that the sales team can be doing, whether it's just having a visible pipeline and good reporting, and I need a schedule I need a schedule link and things like that. So what we've seen, the sales tech is, again, I think marketing, it's MarTech, but for sales, if that makes sense. It's not necessarily new, but it's more of what do they need? What can marketing provide them? So, quick examples like video marketing. So like Vidyard or, some of those type tools that are out there. We have Vidyard on the website, but then also the sales team needs the ability to send one-to-one videos. So really what we help clients do, and what a client does, is they'll maybe invest in MarTech, but it better have a use case or a version that the sales team could then use. So that's just, I'd say how we generally structure those different categories and how some of those practically play out.
So your definition of sales tech is more on the marketing support side of the sales, not necessarily the CRM and the management of the Salesforce automation. Am I understanding that right?
Yeah, I think it's both and. Yeah, we definitely don't want to ignore the CRM and some of those additional tools. But to your point, I think a lot of people think, oh, sales tech, I've got a CRM. But then with some of our HubSpot clients, HubSpot comes with the CRM. So when we're actually implementing some of the HubSpot software for a client, the CRM is rolled into the package, because it used to be where CRM was over here, MarTech was over here. And I'd say in the last decade, these major tech companies have tried to have one combined solution. So I think legacy, used to be sales equals CRM from a tech standpoint. And we've just seen that grow and scale tremendously the last decade.
Yeah, absolutely. And that makes a lot of sense. Now, one of the things, though, that seems to be pretty critical is especially in a B2B environment or a B2B2C, is really understanding who your target accounts are. How do you see this, the art of demand generation supporting that?
Yeah, absolutely. It's really the foundation, I think, when and there's been some really amazing books on demand gen for the last several years, and really that's just a reiteration of content marketing, and then from then it was just probably called content, and then it was just called marketing. So I think when you look at demand gen, it has everything to do with who your target is, and that really comes down to having a clearly defined sales playbook. So a strategy, obviously, is just making sure that we all have cohesive direction, chasing what's going to drive results. So for us, whenever we're working on a demand gen front, one of the first questions that we're asking with the sales team is what's the total addressable market? So we actually start a few steps back. We actually look at the market of who's available, who do we sell to, who are the different personas. And then from there, we work through and eventually have that target account list for them. So I'd say the demand gen strategy, I mean, you'll eventually get a very clearly defined sales playbook, but then also a list from it. And I think before it used to be where, hey, marketing's got all this great, ad tech, we're ready to go. Like we can place an ad same day. We don't have to wait. And then we would just start going after more demographic targeting. So when you look at how things have changed, a lot of the demographics have been removed from ad platforms. When you look at placing a Facebook ad now versus 8 years ago, I mean, that guy wouldn't even choose Facebook today, probably. And that's a little bit of a stretch because I know Facebook and Google are still some of the top digital ad platforms out there, but my goodness, has the targeting changed. So in some ways, demand gen has had to evolve to privacy restrictions. So before it used to be, demand gen, demographic, we could place an ad same day. Now we're having to spend more time in strategy and a list development and market development and going after companies from a B2B standpoint in particular, just because the data that we had access to that we became reliant on is just simply not there anymore.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's almost seems like we were loving, as marketers, we were loving life with the availability of data going back, and now it's getting to be more of a challenge. And I don't know, I'm sure you suffer through questions about PII and making sure you're handling all that. And I don't know that PII should be a 4-letter word because it's so painful for all of us.
Right.
Yeah. So what in one of your messages to me as we were talking, you were talking about, how do you go from automation to domination, and really to kind of, and maybe the right term is to supercharge your marketing strategies for unstoppable success. Tell us about that.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and we can't just rely on foundational systems and foundational CRM, potentially marketing automation and a website. And then do we have a phone number? Can someone call us? And foundation systems are essential. Like we can't do our jobs without having a website in a lot of our clients' use cases, or some type of mechanism of communication, whether it's on phone or through live chat. So essentially where we've been, where you need to be is having that foundational tech stack in place. But if you want to really supercharge, is making sure that, do you have tech at the various stages of the journey? And I think a lot of people don't necessarily think about that. Hey, at a stage one, there's like 5 or 6 different technologies that we need to use there. And then as someone is ready to make a purchasing decision, there's 5 or 6 additional technology that we need to do that. So really one of the first steps that we always do is just a tech audit. What are you currently using? How are you using it? And is it enabling sales? So typically we come back with, hey guys, like you need to kill all of these subscriptions because they're actually not driving any engagement in the journey. So I think a lot of people will invest in technology, and it's self-serve. There's direct sales teams. You could go buy all this tech yourself. You absolutely can. And what we've seen over the years is that it's important to make sure that you've mapped the technology that your buyer needs, but then it's also making sure that, okay, well, does that tech that we just bought, does it actually talk? Is it connected to my foundation system? Because if I'm a manufacturing company and I've got this massive enterprise, Salesforce connection, well, I better not buy something that doesn't integrate with Salesforce. And I know Salesforce has, an open API for the most part and can get most of that technology in. But if we want to supercharge, we got to make sure that when we add tech, then we're not creating a Franken system. We're making sure that all of this tech supports the buyer and is simply integrated into one system. So we'd say that that convergence of that tech into a single platform is really the secret sauce to be able to supercharge your sales funnel.
Yeah, and I think you're right. And I think the good news is it seems to be getting easier. It seems like whether it's whatever your systems are, whether it's HubSpot, like you mentioned, or maybe even Dynamics, although I'm talking more about the on the Salesforce automation side. But then you have, for the larger companies, you got Salesforce, and then you've got Adobe and IBM, and those. I think you're right. The integration is now getting a lot easier. Number one, and then even the integration now with AI. What kind of experiences have you seen there?
Yeah, it's we're really seeing our core technology adapt to AI, which is really nice. So when I look at core tech would be CRM websites, some of the ones I already
Mm,
had mentioned earlier, and I'll just pick on HubSpot. They're in beta. If you've enrolled in beta, you can have AI generated content. So whenever you're building your website in the HubSpot CMS, you can actually do a first pass through AI. No one necessarily asked for that. I'm sure there's a lot of feature requests and benefits from the end users, from the over 90,000 that are using HubSpot. But it just happened one day. You just logged into HubSpot and they're, hey, try this out. Maybe have some AI generated content. Another HubSpot example, just because it's top of mind, is through their chat bot. They've when you look at Drift and HubSpot, Zendesk, and some of these others that have had chats for years for customer support, and obviously sales has really used chat over the last couple of years. Well, they just made an update to the chat where it's chat spot is now AI driven. So it's really interesting, is that we're seeing a lot of our technologies, we're not having to find AI tools, but the tools that we have are actually AI supported. And then we really look at that in two categories of, does this tech support AI? Because AI is definitely on the rise. When you look at monthly search volume to just interest in general, it's probably still the most talked about thing in marketing. We actually did a podcast a couple of weeks ago on just what are the 5 AI that we need to be using this, not chat GPT.
mm,
Because again, the chat GPT has dominated the market. We use it
mm.
all the time. We use it for we help use it for writing memos or contact reports, or meeting notes, or just how to talk to a coworker. I mean, my goodness, it is so integrated at FitzMartin from more of a personal standpoint, but has also been the framework of staging draft emails and just getting a first
Mm-hmm.
pass. So, take this investor deck and write it to this new buyer type. So it's really amazing at what AI has been enabling marketers to do the last month, the last several months. But you don't have to necessarily have a new AI tool to add into the tech stack. Chat GPT might be the exception, but we're noticing, like I said, Guy, just so many of our current technologies are just AI supported, and they're just getting the features
Yeah,
left and right, which is
yeah.
really, really cool. Have you had
Well,
experience yet with any of that? Are you seeing that at
oh
some of
man,
y'all's? Yeah.
it's crazy. Yeah, the now we're not actually in the analytic in the marketing and the content generation space, but even for our own business, having a starting point from that's provided to you by AI easily saves you 50% of your time, and maybe even more, which means you can either generate more content, or you're going to be generating better content.
Yeah.
And so absolutely, and we've got a couple of thoughts as well in terms of how to even use the AI to take the personalization to the next level. I mean, it's already there, but I think there's a couple of areas where it can even take it to the next level when combined with other tools. And in our case, we're analytics guys, so combining that with very very robust analytics, and then putting this, the generative AI and the content generation and kind of on the front end. I think there's some really interesting capabilities there.
Yeah, and yet to that point, where to me it's more removing redundancies in some cases on
Mm.
maybe analytic reporting, and then even from your to your 50% claim there, it most absolutely could be more
Yeah,
when you
yeah,
look at whatever
yeah.
that function is. If that function is writing content, or creating a mood board, or trying to get original photography for a concept. There's some crazy ones out there if you look at
Yeah,
AI on, past presidents, in different activities. And there's some, there's definitely a meme culture on the AI side, but I think a lot of businesses, if they're not leveraging it now, they probably will be forced to in some
yeah,
cases, just
absolutely.
because of the rollout. And the rollout
Yeah.
is similar to any other self-serve platform. We're getting a ton of, I think, users in obviously Chat GPT. When you look at its growth over a 24-hour and a week and a month and a year period,
Mm.
it's still more of the more widely used AI tools that are out there. But yeah, when you look at, and you mentioned analytics, which I think is great, but we look at, some of the top categories from a marketing and agency standpoint are around, image and video,
Yep.
just content generation, like we've already talked about, and then communication, whether that's through virtual assistants or chat robots and things like that. So we're really, I think, marketing now, like those are the three, categories that AI has really penetrated first. And I'm really intrigued to see what those next categories are, because I don't know if any of us predicted it, but we're definitely leveraging it.
Yeah, yeah. And I'm also surprised, pleasantly, to see how fast the AI just kind of seems to have been, just taken over. And you're right. I mean, Chat GPT is great, but we were updating a few things on one of my websites, and we were getting images from AI. Just have an AI generate this image with this and that, and there it is. It's amazing how fast it's been, put into a tool that everybody can use. And now I kind of see it. One of my questions was going to be, what is the next new normal? And it is this integration of this generative AI that's taken marketing by storm.
Yeah, absolutely, it is. And what I think still hasn't done yet is replace the human. And I think, if
Mm.
anything, it's equipping us. I think with Chat GPT, there's a term I read called prompt engineers. So it's actually taking a marketer and them becoming this master of AI. So it's
Mm.
that, hey, I've got this prompt, and no matter what that prompt is, it gives you the best results when it's an outbound email, or how to fire a client, or how to communicate value, and whatever that is. And I think what we're going to be noticing in that next wave is, what is the prompt engineer equivalent for images and through video and through email and communication?
Mm.
Because that, and you're starting to see that. I'm getting those ads now that are like, hey, these are the top prompts for when running this report, or the 4 best hacks and
Yep.
doing it this way. So I think we're already seeing it, a little bit of a game, if it's gamified on, um, it's not just having it, but it's like, how do we use it for the best results for our target market? So yeah, I think next iteration is just, I mean, we're going to become masters at using it,
Yep.
and it's just going to
Yep.
be the norm. Just like we turn on a laptop, hit power up, open our inbox, or open the CRM to see what my daily call script is. AI should be, and will be, as forefront as turning on
Yep.
your computer.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And it's interesting too. I mean, there's been a lot of concern, and I think it's probably a correct concern that AI is going to potentially, cause a lot of job loss and stuff like that. But what I find interesting is, whatever it was 20 years ago, 30 years ago, the laptop was supposed to get rid of all these office workers, and it didn't. I
Right.
think actually there's more office workers now. And so I would imagine that AI has the opportunity to actually increase the number of whatever it is. And so because it is really, if you're the first to implement AI in some fashion, in an intelligent fashion, then you're going to have a competitive advantage, and that's going to require more AI.
That's
And
right.
and at some point, you're going to have the competition. I've got this AI, and then all of a sudden, then there's leapfrog, and then leapfrog and leapfrog. So I think there's going to be kind of an arms race that's going to take place in how companies and brands and marketers implement and utilize all of these really cool AI tools that are out there.
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, and to from our standpoint, we see us having another tool to the arsenal that we didn't have before.
Mm,
Now, I think some people are more threatened, and we're seeing it a lot on the art side. So whether you're obviously there's a strike in Hollywood right
mm,
now, and that's a major concern on generating scripts. And there's a Disney Plus show recently with Marvel Studios, and the entire intro is AI generated art. So
mm-hmm,
when you look at that, I mean, a lot of people are threatened and are hoping that the industry, makes a stance and regulates some of that on what are we okay with using and when are we using it. And that's no different than if I can't just create an AI blog post and resell it to a client because they don't own that IP. So when you look at what we create through there's some yet to be written
mm,
legislation on what does someone own when they use AI. So for us, we use it and leverage it a lot. But when you look at what the different passes are and what the client then owns as a transaction, a part of the agency,
mm,
there's, we've been having to seek legal counsel and are updating our MSA actually to address AI because the client, if we create an ad, the client owns the ad. But if
mm.
AI creates the ad, who owns the ad? So it's an interesting dilemma that we're running into that will, obviously, to your point, work itself out
Yeah,
as
yeah.
we just continue to see like what's our stance on it as a culture.
Mm.
And I think
Although
it's so new, we're
yeah,
stuck there.
I definitely see your point. Although I guess the question then is AI. So if I build a house and I use a hammer to build a house, does the hammer belong to the house, or does the hammer belong to me as the builder?
Right.
So then the question is AI then is it owned by the creator of the result, or is it owned by the buyer of that? Because I think one of the stories I really love is and it's a metaphor, but is this guy says, hey, we're having trouble with getting our ship to work, and so the ship then hires, or the ship owner hires an engineer, and it's going to cost $50,000. And he comes in, and the engineer comes in and looks at the problem, and then finally says, give me a hammer, and he taps right in the right spot, and then all of a sudden things start to work. And then of course the guy that paid the 50,000, or was about to pay the $50,000, is, that's it for $50,000? And the engineer, or the repairman, or in this case the AI person, yes, absolutely, because it was the 20 years it took me to learn exactly where to hit the hammer. And in the AI case, it took me 20 years to know exactly how to ask the question of AI to give me the answer that I want.
Yeah, that's
So
brilliant.
I see your point, that there are some interesting legal questions as to who owns what. And I guess the other part of it is that AI, Chat GPT, for example, or Bard, or whoever it is actually a licensed tool that Google, or I guess Chat GPT is Bing, is Microsoft, right? So they actually own the results because they created it. But I don't know what's in their license agreement, so it's probably more important to understand what's in theirs, and then how you, to your point, then how you change your master services agreement as to who owns what when that creation is then generated through all of your smart questions.
Right. Well, because the last thing you want is, hey, I said this, and then you're seeing your exact creation out in the world. You're like, oh, well, that's mine. No different
Mm.
than logo trademarks, right?
Yeah, 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 yeah.
So yeah, it's that because that yeah was not in place whenever that was when those tools were originated, and we're seeing that now is that we're getting to see the foundation, the creation, regulation
Mm.
of I think a really it's a definitely a shift in how we work, but it's also a tool set that needs counsel.
Yeah, yeah,
If I'm
yeah,
honest, because we
yeah,
love it, we love using it and think that there's tremendous value, like I said, across the board.
yeah.
But at the same time, we'll need to be regulated in some regard.
Well, do you think it's it's a legal regulatory thing, or is it more a contractual, in terms of my contract with you that, I'm the one that used this hammer to develop this call to action and
Right.
this script and this whatever. And so therefore, I own that. You don't own it because, well, you own it because you paid for it, but
Right.
I have to license that to you.
Right. Yeah, I think it's both and, right? I think, what no different than GDPR and some of
Mm,
these larger regulations on, hey, what we do with your data. Um, I don't get a note right now that says what we do with your prompt or what we do with your
mm,
email that you just wrote, because people are putting, probably more sensitive information in there
mm.
in terms of maybe how to solve a problem or how to communicate with someone or
Yeah.
and definitely code. I mean, we haven't really touched on that. Is that there's tremendous coding abilities within Chat GPT. So when you mentioned running some analytics report, I don't know if you've thrown a SQL database in there to see what it could compute, but it's I did one something simple. I was like, hey, I just need to update a div tag on this call to action button to do this, and in 5 seconds, I
Yeah.
was like, oh my
Yeah.
goodness, I didn't
Yeah.
have to go to my developer on that and actually use the source code. I was like, this is great. So yeah, I think it's going to be both and on the individual AI tool and just what does it do after you put an input. I think that there's a lack of clarity on, to your point, on who owns, but then do I then distribute? Am I creating another billion-dollar industry if I'm selling all your questions to this third party? So now we've created, we're phasing out cookies, and that's been
Mm,
marketing's been dependent on cookies, but
mm.
are they selling all of our prompts and we don't know about it? I don't know. I really don't. So I think that there's, if the right people, I think, should be asking that question on, are we creating another cookies industry?
Yeah.
Because when you look at the
Yeah.
billions of dollars that has been in reselling your email, reselling your phone number and your demographic information,
Mm.
I'm sure your prompt is on the hot list if it's not already.
Well, that is a really good point. So if I put in there, write me write me the script, the JavaScript to handle this button to do X, Y, and Z, and that happens to be pretty creative and very different, then does ChatGPT own that prompt, or do you own that prompt? Yeah, that
Right.
is a very interesting question. Yeah.
We're pondering. so it's then it becomes cautionary tale, right? It's like
Yeah,
cue
right, right.
the music on that.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
that's with anything. Yeah, we would say with any database or content tool where you're giving information.
yeah,
And
yeah,
we've been glad that,
yeah,
yeah, I mean, people are telling you, hey, this site accepts cookies, and that what a cookie means is this, and we've got this about you. For the most part, I love it because I want a tailored experience,
yeah,
and
yeah,
it's on the cookie side. And I think with on the AI side, yeah, if it is giving me exactly what I want, then I'm one of the early adopter on the diffusion of innovation line. Like I'm in the front there wanting to
yeah.
leverage it,
Same here.
and I think that's where we're at. We're still very early in AI. I think we're I don't know if you've read reports that are contrary, but we would say we're in the really, you know, earlier stage. We're definitely not to laggard or anything on that side of the bell curve yet.
Mm,
So we think that, yeah, because of this, there's a lot of unknowns. I mean, we just don't know yet, which is why I think a lot of brands haven't fully adopted it across the board, because there's just a lot of what ifs. But that
Yeah.
doesn't mean that we shouldn't try, experiment, leverage, and learn. But we are the test subjects for any
Yeah,
user
that
in it
is
right
definitely
now.
true. That is definitely true. Well, before we close, is there
Yeah.
anything else that you'd like to mention?
We'd love for you to check out our centricity podcast. We've actually been doing a
Hmm.
series on AI. So if you're an agency owner or in the B2B space or an executive looking for additional details, even from deeper than what we dove in today, been doing an AI series on our podcast. So I've been the host there and would love for you guys to reach out to us if you're looking for
Yeah.
some expertise and thought leadership. I would love to point listeners to the FitzMartin Centricity podcast.
Fantastic. Definitely do that. So I do have one last question though, and that is, so what advice would you give an up and coming new marketer?
Yeah, dive in. One of my favorite bosses just let me explore, and I think
Hmm.
finding an environment either on your own or in your career where you just get exposed to a lot of things so that you can make intelligent decisions. I think I have the autonomy I have now because I wasn't just a this type marketer from day one, where I was really exposed
Mm.
to 7 or 8 different types of marketing. And then in my career, as I've gotten older, that's whether you're in your 20s, 30s, or 40s, you can start marketing at any time or older. But no matter where you are in your decades of your career, just exposure, I think is really, really beneficial for someone getting into marketing. If you get so narrow at the beginning, you may be kind of narrowing in the wrong place. So
Yeah, yeah. Fantastic. Well, thank you for that. I really appreciate it, and thank you for participating today. And you mentioned your podcast, the FitzMartin. What was it again? FitzMartin centricity. If I can
that's
get my
right.
words out here.
That's right. Yeah. FitzMartin.com, FitzMartin/centricity. And that's CENTRICITY.
Fantastic. Well, Will, thank you so much for being on. And for the audience, please stay tuned for many other videos in this series on the backstory on marketing. And please visit marketingmachine.prorelevant.com and you can download excerpts from my book and other valuable things there. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it, Will.
Thanks, Kyle. Have a great day.
Yep, you too. Thank you.